Did I put the clothes in the dryer? I hope they don't think I was
I need to
serious
be
about
awake
that
in
joke.
3
I forgot my brain
hours.
shut
Just
off.
sleep already.
When your racing thoughts keep you up at night, it's tough to let go and get the rest you need. Better sleep can help. You might have heard of white or brown noise, but there's a whole rainbow of color noises, and they can help you calm your mind, reduce stress, and sleep better, like the green noise you're listening to now. With the Better Sleep app, you can discover more color noises and over 200 soothing sounds, guided meditations, and bedtime stories. High-quality rest is vital to your mental well-being and physical health. Calm your restless mind, conquer your day, and sleep better at night. Download Better Sleep from the App Store or Google Play and start a 7-day trial today. Because when you sleep better, you feel better.
This episode brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Shifting a little money here, a little there, and hoping it all works out? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can get a better budgeter and potentially lower your insurance bill too. You tell Progressive what you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll help find you options within your budget. Try it today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
I just say, okay, well, what's the new situation? How can I be helpful? That's the question you always have to ask yourself when you're being overrun by new tech or a big competitor or something. You ask yourself, what do they still need? And how can I offer that to them? How can I be useful and helpful with who I am and what I know and what I want to do all day? And I love the research side of my business. I've always enjoyed talking to customers. I've interviewed thousands of customers for hundreds of companies, and it's always fascinating. It's always fun. I always learn things. I can always go back to the people in the company and say, you know what? This is what they want. You think it's this. You told me this is what you thought was important. I interviewed customers and they're like, yeah, okay, fine. Everybody does that. This is why we bought from them.
Step into the world of success with your brand amplified, the ultimate podcast designed to unravel the intricacies of thriving businesses. I'm your host, Annika Jackson, and I'm on a mission to uncover the stories, strategies, and secrets that have propelled entrepreneurs and business leaders to success.
Kristin Zhivago, it has been a great honor to finally meet you after we've been trying to get this scheduled for a while. And I love what we were talking about before we jumped in, which is love and relationships and treating people with care, no matter if they're a team member, a client, potential business partner, just somebody that we know who owns a business that may or may not refer people to us. One of my friends always says, life is about time and relationships. And I do think that really holds true and is something that should be held more important. It's never more important, but right now I think it's more recognizable when we're thinking about all the technology that we're moving towards. Those relationships that we have human to human are just sacred. So
yeah,
thank you for coming on the show and sharing a little bit of your insights and what you do and how you help business owners move through the world.
Good. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So let's talk about, you have primarily been in business for yourself during your career.
Yeah.
Was that something you always knew that you would do? You would be an entrepreneur?
I was an entrepreneur when I came out of my mother, I think. I sold Girl Scout cookies. I even sold rocks on my neighborhood. I had a little wagon and I'd find some interesting looking rocks and take them around. I thought I was a good salesperson, but I realized later in life that those were just nice ladies who felt sorry for me and bought the rocks, you know. No, I've just always been interested in that. My father was an entrepreneur. My stepfather was an entrepreneur. And my mother was very involved in the theater and being an artist. So everybody was just sort of doing their thing. So I kind of grew up with that environment. Yeah, it was a good training for me.
Yeah. Well, what was the first business that you decided to put out into the world? And how has that evolved into Zhivago Partners of today?
Yeah, I'm really going to age myself. I started my first business with Zhivago Advertising and PR, and it was in Silicon Valley. It was a high-tech agency with my husband, and it was 1979. I don't tell many people that because it's so long ago. But the real life-changing experience for me was this little story I love to tell, where I was given a catalog by a Pratt & Whitney distributor. I was actually working for him as a receptionist in his machine shop. And he said, you'd be really good at selling these tools. So here's a catalog, wear your mini skirt, everything's going to be fine. So I did. And I went around to companies in San Diego, which is where I was living at the time. And one particular machine shop I went into was filled with guys in a very small shop. But they all came out when I walked in, because normally it was men back in those days selling those kinds of things. And the other guys were sort of looking over the shoulder of the chief, the main guy who was running. He was an old fart kind of guy. And he said, "Okay, honey, well, why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to sell you machine shop tools from Pratt & Whitney." And he said, "Okay, tell me how your drill bit is better than the one I'm using now." I didn't have an answer because I was just given a catalog and I put on my mini skirt, thought I'd be fine. So I was embarrassed. It was embarrassing. It was the first time I realized that you had to know what you were talking about when you sold. I was only 17, remember? And I went out to my car, and before I got into it, I thought to myself, I'm going to learn everything I can about tech and selling. And I've been doing that ever since. That one guy changed my life, and I've not stopped. I've been on the bleeding edge of tech since, golly, back in the PC days, and the Apple and all that stuff being introduced. And I helped with my husband. We helped introduce most of the technologies that we use today to the marketplace. The only regret I have is voicemail. That turned out really bad. So, because you have to jump through all those hoops instead of just getting a human being on the phone. But other than that, I reinvented myself several times, which one has to do, especially now with AI. In 1991, my husband and I were partners. He was graphics and I was copy and clients. And the Mac came out. And I looked at him and said, "They're all going in-house. I'm not going to beg for crumbs at the table. I'm going to reinvent myself. Why don't you retire?" He did. He was 52 at the time. And he ended up making things the rest of his life. He was an inventor and an artist, and he built things out of wood and stuff. I decided I wasn't going to be a sales or marketing consultant because there were a million of them. I decided that CEOs, all they really cared about was revenue. So I called myself a revenue coach, and I ended up spending some decades doing marketing and sales turnarounds for companies of all sizes, including IBM, Dow Jones, and did some work for Johnson & Johnson, but a lot of mid-sized companies. It was great training. It was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. But by the late to mid, by 2014, I could see that established companies were really having trouble competing against more savvy digital competitors. Mm-hmm. So I started up an agency with a client of mine, and we parted company in a couple of years. We just didn't agree on some philosophies. And I started Zhivago Partners in 2017. And I've been doing that ever since.
Yeah.
And it's great.
I think that you offer such a great perspective from the current generations who are just, grew up having a phone in their hand practically.
Yeah.
Or
that's
iPad,
exactly right. Yeah.
streaming platforms.
Yeah.
But there's a different perspective that you can bring in that's so much more foundational when you've been there from the very beginning of technology that we all take for granted these days.
Yeah. Well, it's odd because I can tell you everything inside of a computer and how it got there and how it's made, and it doesn't really do any good because everybody has one, and you really have to be very good at apps now. You have to be really fluid in understanding how they work. And when the cloud first came out, I remember the guy who started the first browser was talking in this conference I was going to, and he talked about the cloud, and it sounded really good. What he didn't say is now you're going to have 30 or 40 or 50 apps that you're working with all the time, and each one has its own password, and each one has its own 2FA, two-factor authentication. And if the grid goes down, we're all in trouble.
Yeah. And we've seen things like that happen. If AWS goes down, Claude doesn't work. A lot of things go down as well. And since that's one of our primary forms of communication, it can make life really difficult. So in this time, you also had a book come out that...
Actually, the book came out in 2011. And having been in tech so long, I was very careful to write it so that it would still be relevant now. And I'm happy to say I pulled it off. The only difference now is when I tell people about how to conduct customer interviews, I used to talk about the phone, and now it's Zoom audio, of course. But other than that, all of the advice in there about how people buy, why people buy, how to address what I call the light scrutiny products and the heavy scrutiny products. It's a whole different... I split the world's products and services into 4 categories based on how much scrutiny the person applied to the sale. So light scrutiny is see it, buy it, cheap, nobody else involved, the chocolate bar at the checkout counter kind of thing. Medium scrutiny is like clothing, where somebody else's opinion might be appropriate, but there's not really another buyer involved. And it's $10 to $200 or what thereabouts. And here are your questions. Here are the things that you're concerned about. And then heavy scrutiny is there's a contract, there's a salesperson, it's houses and cars. There's a lot of questions. There's usually somebody else involved, and it costs a lot more money. And then the last one is intense, which is all of the heavy stuff, but you get married. It's a long-term relationship. It's a service business, or it's super expensive, like building an airplane or something like that. Each one of those buying processes have their own set of questions. And more recently, I should say, I've developed something I call the buyer's mindset when they set out to buy, which is actually the most important thing you can know about your customer. And it consists of their desires, what they want, their concerns, because they've been burned before. There's no virgin buyers out there. And their questions. Those are the 3 hoops you have to jump through in that order. So when they come to your site, they should say, oh yeah, they get me. They know what I want. And then, okay, but I have these concerns, and you have to address them. And then now that I'm still with you, now let's talk about my very specific questions. So that's what people should be worrying about. And unfortunately, they're doing something else. They're stalking people with AI. And they're building personas about those assumptions. And what somebody did yesterday in their behavior, buying something else, it doesn't actually help you with what they were thinking when they set out to buy your product or your service. It's very specific. So if you miss that part, you're wasting your budget. You're just throwing money out the window. It's terrible. It drives me crazy.
This is such an interesting point, because there are so many AI tools that can help you build out your personas and tell you motivations. And it is based on research, but you're right, it's not based on your exact customer profile. And I think that's where a lot of people miss the mark. You see ads on social media all the time. You'll see the same ad, or because your phone has overheard or seen you research something.
Yeah, that's right.
All
There
better
you go.
brands at the same
Yeah.
time. And they
Yeah.
try to get you quickly into the funnel to purchase when you're not even there yet. You might still be in the research phase, the discovery
Or
phase.
worse, you just bought it and your itch has been scratched. And you're like, why are you selling this to me? I have the one I want. It's even arrived already, and I'm happy with it. It's such a waste. we are wasting right now because we're so data driven and we think we're so smart because we have these AI tools, and they are fantastic. I use them all day, every day. Okay. But there are certain things they just can't do for you. And this is one of them. And the simple answer is, if you want to know what your customers are thinking, ask them. Just be humble and ask them. And in chapter 3 of my book, I spell out exactly how you do it. It's a recipe. My whole book is prescriptive. It's not one idea and a whole bunch of case studies. It's absolutely, here's how you get. That's why I called it Roadmap to Revenue. Here's how you get from where you are to where you want to be and how you sell more.
Yeah.
And the first place you start is by asking the people who've already bought from you.
Did I put the clothes in the dryer? I hope they don't think I was
I
serious
need to be
about
awake.
that
Snacks.
joke.
I've got my brain
Snacks.
shut
Just
off.
sleep already.
When your racing thoughts keep you up at night, it's tough to let go and get the rest you need. Better sleep can help. You might have heard of white or brown noise, but there's a whole rainbow of color noises, and they can help you calm your mind, reduce stress, and sleep better, like the green noise you're listening to now. With the Better Sleep app, you can discover more color noises and over 200 soothing sounds, guided meditations, and bedtime stories. High-quality rest is vital to your mental well-being and physical health. Calm your restless mind, conquer your day, and sleep better at night. Download Better Sleep from the App Store or Google Play and start a 7-day trial today. Because when you sleep better, you feel better.
Yeah. Well, and I want to recognize that Roadmap to Revenue was named one of the top 6 marketing and sales books by Forbes. And interestingly, this is something that we talk about in the digital media management program. We have courses where it is about going out and having focus groups, even, doing ethnographic studies and following an ideal customer around on their journey and seeing how they're using things so that how to better design and what their intentions and motivations really are.
Yeah, but you still have to be specific and look at why they bought your product, how they bought your product. And focus groups have flaws because they're influenced by other people in the group. There's usually a dominant person, and that person starts to sway the other people. You want to know exactly what was in that individual's head. And when you ask these questions, one of the most interesting things about it is you only need to talk to 5 to 7 people of a given type before you get bankable, absolutely ironclad, 100% accurate stuff. They'll use the same phrase to describe why they bought or how they bought or what it was on their mind, whatever. They will use the same phrase even though they've never talked to any of the other people that you're calling. It's very interesting to me.
Yeah, that is very interesting. And that takes us to your work, continuing down the revenue road and really helping. And you have a revenue growth assessment that you formulated. And I'd love to hear about that and also hear about, because you do a lot of work in digital, but do you also do the focus groups or the surveys? Right. No. Okay.
No,
So
because think of the last time, first of all, surveys are for people who have time. People who buy a lot of stuff don't have time. That's just the way it is. I mean, you're either making money running around having a life or you're not. And the people who are running around having a life tend to buy more than the people who don't. So it's not really helpful. And surveys are built on your own assumptions. So you build the questionnaire. What is your thought about this? A, B, C, or D? I was once taking a survey over the phone with somebody because I felt sorry for her, because I feel sorry for all salespeople or anybody like that. And I was curious what the questions were. It had something to do with my agency or life or something. So I stayed on. And at one point she said, okay, A, B, C, or D. And I said, well, actually, it's none of those things. It's this other thing over here. And she said, well, I don't have any room for notes. I'll just say C. And I thought, oh, man, she's going back to the CEO of the company with this report that said C was important. This is false data. And we're running around using false data. I mean, it's really one thing I often say is that an 18-year-old will buy a blender for the same reason as an 80-year-old. You can't say demographics are the answer, or even former other behaviors. Sure, you can say, okay, if I'm selling a consumer product, this person likes to fish. Okay, fine. But why did they buy that particular lure? Why did they buy that one over the other ones? How far did they look? How hard was it for them to buy from you? Did they abandon their shopping cart and then because it was too hard, but then they came back and they looked again and they finally found it? I mean, this is sad. Home Depot is a great example of trying to search for something even after you've bought. So with Amazon, Amazon sets the standard for anybody ever. If they wanted to be perfectly attuned to what the customer wants, just look at Amazon. There's a whole list of things that they've done, including getting answers from other customers and here's what else you looked at, and here's what other people who bought this looked at, and here's reviews, and here's it's just they keep finding new ways to make it easier for you to buy. So the example's been out there for decades, and Home Depot says, okay, here's your list of things that you bought. And they list the order numbers, no pictures, no description, nothing. You have to go into each one and see if your thing is in there. Amazon shows you a little picture of the thing and gives you a link to it and says, here's when it was delivered. I mean, it's just night and day. So we are so far from making it easy for people to buy from us. And yet, at the same time, we're throwing all this money out the window just on these data points that really don't help, don't even get us close. It's sad. It's very sad. I'm determined to break through this before I kick the bucket. It's just like, this has to change.
So how do you recommend people find the right people to interview?
Well, if you have some customers, and again, you only need 5 to 7 of a given type, and you've got enough. If you have, say, 20 or 200 or 1,000 customers, you're picking the people who are the most satisfied because you want to reverse engineer the perfect sale. You want to get that right person who really, they were so excited about what you promised and what you delivered. And marketing is just making promises the company needs to keep. So I often say the branding is that, making the promises, marketing, making promises on behalf of the company. And your brand is the promise that you keep or break. That's it. People get all upset with, talking about what branding means and all that. This whole marketing thing is making promises to customers, and then you better have a company that can keep them. So this revenue growth assessment thing that we're doing is finding the places where it's difficult for the customer and then fixing those. It's usually people or processes. And then people is a matter of training. I've never fired anybody because of this. It's training them to understand what's needed and but it's people having trouble with the systems and the processes. Most people in companies like to work for the customer's benefit, but they find that management gets in the way. So there's a political component to marketing that keeps the company from keeping the promises that marketing has made. Anyway, I'm getting off the track a little bit.
Learning about the revenue growth assessment. So you actually didn't go off track because you're talking about the secret sauce that you bring to the table.
Yeah, well, that's it. It's an extension of the just interviewing customers. We're interviewing other people, and I'm very process oriented. My next book is called Love, Leverage, and Logistics: How You and Your Company Can Change the World. And it's about taking care of your customers and your employees and your partners. That's what love is. Love is taking care of somebody else. Doing that then gives you leverage out in the marketplace. It creates a momentum beyond everything you're doing because people say, oh, wow, they're taking care of me. I'm going to tell other people how good this was. And then logistics, which I've spent years and years learning, figuring out, understanding how systems work, working with IT people, working with developers, and just understanding the management side of technology. I'm not going to get super deep in my last section about the different technologies. Everybody's writing about that. There's a great book out right by a good friend of mine, Jim Stern. I think it's called The New Science of Customer Relationships. And it's a really good book for saying, okay, what are the systems that make this work? And here's some case studies. I'm not going to go there. I'm going to talk about how you as a company owner can manage the people who are doing your technical work. It's not an easy thing. It's not something that comes naturally. You have to learn how to do it. So I'm going to be teaching that in that last section. And the way you change the world is I'll just finish this thought. You create a safe place for nice people to work. You take care of your customers. There's billions of businesses in the world. And there's not a lot of good, fun, happy stuff happening right now in the world. So why not make your little space a place where people know that this is where we're all about the truth. We're all about helping each other and the customers. And then they like coming to work.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have a more productive team who's invested.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Yeah. So when is your next book coming out?
Oh, golly. I actually stopped writing for a while because AI swept through the digital marketing agency industry like a tsunami. And we had to restructure everything and say, wait a minute, okay, everything's changed. Mm-hmm. Who needs writers? Well, you still do, as it turns out. Who needs graphic artists? Because you can prompt ChatGPT or Grok or any of these other tools and say, and now Nano Banana from Google, and say, here's what I want. And then you fine tune it a little bit and you get what you want and you're not paying anything. I mean, this is massive change in an industry, and whole sections of this type of work are just being wiped out. Yeah. What's interesting is now they're hiring some graphic artists to come back in and fix with Photoshop and stuff, the things that AI just couldn't do with a prompt. Sometimes you can't get them to put that extra finger on the hand because there's only 4 fingers, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's still a lot of interesting things in the world of generative AI that don't quite work.
But they're getting there. They're getting better all the time.
They are, but I do believe there still needs to be the human in the loop element.
Oh, it's getting more important than ever because people are really, I've been interviewing people who say they're insulted when they realize what they're reading was generated by AI. They don't like that. They feel like, and then maybe they'll get over it. Who knows? Maybe we'll all get so used to it. But copy that's written, let's put it another way. Copy that's written by a copywriter who has interviewed customers and knows them and likes them and respects them and has learned from them and gotten big ahas. I've had this when I've trained copywriters all over the world. When they've interviewed customers, they're just shocked at what they now know about that customer. And now they're speaking to that customer, and that customer knows that they are known. It's one of the first things we learn as human beings. Is this person really on my side?
Yeah.
Or not? And babies know it. It's one of the first things you learn. So people are skeptical of being sold to by machines. It bothers them. So that's a problem. It may go away. And also, of course, we're developing shopping assistants. I mean, Google's dead. Unless Google catches up with ChatGPT, Google's dead. Google just says, here's where you can find these things. ChatGPT says, here's the answer.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, I mean, Amazon just pulled all of their Google shopping budget because they don't need it.
Right. Well,
Because
Google's like the second biggest search engine in the world. I mean, I'm not Google, sorry, Amazon.
Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how has this changed the way that your company does business?
Well, this is when I thought, okay, if all of these things are happening, and it was just like when I became a revenue coach and, the Mac came out. I never sit there and say, here's a tsunami coming, and I don't go, stop, you're hurting me. I don't do that. I just say, okay, well, what's the new situation? How can I be helpful? That's the question you always have to ask yourself when you're being overrun by new tech or a big competitor or something. You ask yourself, what do they still need? And how can I offer that to them? How can I be useful and helpful with who I am and what I know and what I want to do all day? And I love the research side of my business. I've always enjoyed talking to customers. I've interviewed thousands of customers for hundreds of companies, and it's always fascinating. It's always fun. I always learn things. I can always go back to the people in the company and say, you know what? This is what they want. You think it's this. You told me this is what you thought was important. I interviewed customers and they're like, yeah, okay, fine. Everybody does that. This is why we bought from them. Then you know the promise they want you to make and keep, and you have to customize your business to make sure you actually deliver. And that's what this revenue growth assessment does. It goes beyond just saying, here's your message. If you don't keep your promise, if you have a great message, but you don't actually deliver on it, then you get bad reviews and people saying, oh, don't go there. That's, so your momentum, this whole idea of taking care of people creates positive momentum. Not knowing who they are and not taking care of them creates negative momentum. And then that means your own company is hurting your sales.
Did I put the clothes in the dryer? I hope they don't think I was
I
serious
need to be
about
awake
that
in
joke.
3
I forgot my
hours.
brain shut
Just
off.
sleep already.
When your racing thoughts keep you up at night, it's tough to let go and get the rest you need. Better sleep can help. You might have heard of white or brown noise, but there's a whole rainbow of color noises, and they can help you calm your mind, reduce stress, and sleep better, like the green noise you're listening to now. With the Better Sleep app, you can discover more color noises and over 200 soothing sounds, guided meditations, and bedtime stories. High-quality rest is vital to your mental well-being and physical health. Calm your restless mind, conquer your day, and sleep better at night. Download Better Sleep from the App Store or Google Play and start a 7-day trial today. Because when you sleep better, you feel better.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine this is something that's good to do it multiple times in an organization's lifespan. So, because like you said, things change, audiences change.
Yeah, faster than ever.
Yeah. So where do you recommend businesses first start with a revenue growth assessment? Do they need to do it?
Same thing that we always do, which is the first thing you do, you interview the client first. I always find out what their aspirations are, what they've done so far, what are their systems. We really drill down with them and get a good view of who they are and what they're doing and how they're doing it and the promises they're making. Mm-hmm. Then we go back to the customers and we interview people who've already bought from them and we say, okay, I don't feed them. I ask open-ended questions. How do you feel about the product and service? What were the promises they made and how well did they deliver? Which they sort of answer when you're asking that first question. But I ask other things like, if you were the CEO of this company tomorrow, what's the first thing you would focus on or fix? Which gets you down to the real thing they wish they would do. Like I have a cheese product that I buy and it's just in a container, and you can see it. You see the Parmesan in there and everything. And I feel like I need to send one of these little packages to the CEO along with 2 packages from 2 other competitors and say, okay, take this and try to peel off that cellophane thing at the top. Okay, just go ahead because I've tried with pliers and all sorts of things. I love your cheese, but it's a pain and I have to cut around it with a knife and I want to use the container again. Then I have to get rid of the little plastic stuff on the side. Your competitors, foil comes right off. Cellophane comes right off. Easy. Okay. People don't open their own packaging. They aren't buyers. The minute you start a company, you put on a seller hat. It's impossible to do otherwise. And so you lose the perspective of the person who's trying to buy. But if you put on a seller hat, when you're thinking about how you sell more. And you ask yourself, what has stopped me from buying from companies? What has frustrated me? What, is it the voicemail hell? Is it you're trying to order and you can't find the right thing? There's a really big boat product chain called West Marine. And my husband and I were living in Silicon Valley when they opened their first store. It's called West Coast Ropes or something. And their search function just does not work. I mean, I searched once for a man overboard buoy, which is something you throw in the water when somebody falls off the boat. So you can actually see, because you can't see the person's head in waves. It doesn't work. So you throw that over along with the life jacket thing or the life preserver. And it's a very specific thing. But when I type that into West Marine, I get all this other stuff that has nothing to do. And it's like 300 things. And I still haven't found the man overboard buoy. Okay. So we're still making it ridiculously difficult for people to buy.
Yeah. So for the assessment, somebody should have some history of their business. It shouldn't be necessarily a business that's just starting out, doesn't have a customer base yet.
Those are, I tend not to work with startups, partly because of the cash flow stuff. It's not fun because they can't pay all the time. And I did that enough in Silicon Valley. So I tend to go for mid-sized companies that have customers. By the way, if you are a startup, you can go to people who would maybe buy from you. The problem is you're mostly talking to your friends and they already trust you.
Right.
Okay. And that's a big problem with salespeople, when entrepreneurs hire a salesperson and they've been selling to their friends. The entrepreneur's been selling to his or her friends. Then they hire a salesperson who's selling to total strangers. And the entrepreneur's like, why are you having so much trouble? I didn't have any trouble. Well, yeah, you talk to your cousin who's known you all of his life. I mean, so yeah, if you can find people who might buy your type of product, you do ask them. But this service is really honestly best used by companies who've been in business at least a year or something like that. And they have 5 to 7 customers of a given type that we can talk to. But that's all. That's the only requirement. And we do tend to focus on B2B rather than B2C. I'm just happier doing it. I'm a nerd.
I love hearing that because I think I honestly think that it's an important quality to recognize in ourselves as practitioners is that we want to dive into the research. We want to be excited about finding that gem in businesses that we work with.
Yeah. Yeah. And customers will tell you. That's what's so wonderful about it. You can go back into that conference room with all those people with all their opinions. This is how we did it at our last company, so that's how we should do it here. That's what the finance guy says. And you lose all those arguments as a marketer because you don't have the customer in your back pocket. But once you've done these interviews, man, I've given lectures to marketers all over the world and recommended they do this. And one gal wrote me back one time and said, you will not believe what's happening to me. They listen to me now. I have real power in the company, on the board meetings and everything, because I know my customers and I can say, no, that's not true. You might feel that way, but our customers don't feel that way. Wow. And that's truth. That's honest truth. And then you build campaigns and then you build the plans that you can get with help with AI and all that.
Yeah. So you've built out this assessment. You've had to figure out how you want to move forward with your digital business as AI has become more prominent and what roles are important when you're doing this work. And you have a book that you had put on the shelf for a little bit to get through this AI, beginning of AI, Gen AI era. So have you started working on the book again? Do you have a timeline?
Yeah, I have. I'm partnering with a guy that was a client 40 years ago, believe it or not. During that time, he's opened up this whole environment for CPAs. And he's got something like 6,000 CPAs who are members of this portal and on all that stuff. So we're putting together a webinar. He came back to me and said, I've been reading your stuff all these years. And I think you'd be good to talk to them about marketing their stuff. And there are people who are starting to sell their companies, and they need to supercharge their sales to make it, an attractive target. So that's something what we do after we do the revenue growth assessment. We're still doing all the digital agency stuff that we have been doing since 2017. But now we're doing it with this. And we also do a lot of market and industry research, by the way, using many of the AI tools that, competitive research and what trends there are in the market and that sort of thing. So we put together a targeted on-budget campaign for them. That's where it goes next. But just this whole idea of getting to a market and coming at it with what you should be coming at it with, that's the most important thing. And it starts with your customers, as we've talked about.
Yeah. I think you've given everybody a lot to think about, because in day-to-day of a small to medium-sized business particularly, it can be very difficult to remember that we need to focus on our customers. It's not necessarily about the shiny marketing, what platforms you're on. Yes, that has a place. But first and foremost is, are you reaching the right customers with a message that they need to hear from you because of their buying behaviors?
Yeah, and what they want. What promise
exactly.
do they want you to make? And by the way, just to answer your question a little more accurately, the book, I'm hoping now that I can get back to this now that I've restructured my business to be an AI-friendly company and just building what we think our customers want. And of course, I've asked them, not me personally, but somebody who worked for me, so we get the truth that they're not sugarcoating it. And that's another thing. You really need to hire somebody else to make these calls because people will be too polite. They'll just, not tell you the unvarnished truth. So the book now, I'm getting back to writing it because I'm going to be publishing it with the help of this guy that's running all this. He's been in publishing for decades. So that's, I would say, I don't know, we're probably 6 months away from getting it out on the market, just realistically. But
okay, fantastic. Well, when you do, we'll have to make sure we update the show notes for our interview. Yeah, so that we can include that. But I'm also sure that it's going to be on your website, which we will have in the show notes. So
yeah, good.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot. I think I would ask you if there's one last thing you want to impart, but I think that we know what that is.
Okay, you tell me what I'm going to impart.
Well, I understand what promise your customers want you to keep.
Yeah, exactly. And then keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got it. You got it, babe. You're doing great.
Well, Kristin, I will ask you, do you have a favorite quote, mantra, poem, verse, family motto, just a final phrase, words of wisdom that help you get through every day, help keep you inspired?
Golly, that's a really good question. Nobody's ever asked me it that way before. I think, well, I'm somebody who definitely believes in a higher power and have come to appreciate those times when you just stop and listen instead of just letting your mind run and everything. If you really learn how to listen, you get thoughts that are positive and inspiring and they get you up. And so every day I find that I need that and I use it and it works. Everybody has to have something outside of themselves that is encouraging and uplifting. And sometimes it can be another person, but you really need that. And you need the quiet time in order to get through the chaos of this change every other week. AI no, it's worse than that. It's changing by the minute now and has been for about a year. And you're just drinking from a fire hose. But the truth about what customers want hasn't changed at all. They just want you to take care of them when they come to you and try to buy from you and get service from you. That's it.
So hopefully everybody who's listening to this episode really takes that message to heart, goes back to the basics of really knowing your customer, asking them to make sure that, or maybe not you yourself, but has somebody else, a third party team member, asking them so that you can make sure that the road that you set out to go down is where you should be going.
That's
and that you
where
don't.
the revenue is. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kristin. This has been a really fun conversation. And I am excited to share your story, your journey, your wisdom, your books and your revenue growth assessment tool and services with everybody who's listening to this episode or watching on their favorite platform.
Thank you. It's been a very enjoyable time with you. Thanks, Anika.
Absolutely. And thank you to everybody who is watching this or listening to it. And I'll see you again with another great expert to share their story, their journey, and some tips and tricks for you very shortly.
Thanks for listening or watching to this episode of Your Brand Amplified. Don't forget to leave us a rating or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. And if you want to learn more, check us out at yourbrangamplified.com.
Did I put the clothes in the dryer? I hope they don't think I was
I
serious
need to be
about
awake
that.
in
Snacks?
3
I want my brain
hours.
shut
Just
off.
sleep already.
When your racing thoughts keep you up at night, it's tough to let go and get the rest you need. Better sleep can help. You might have heard of white or brown noise, but there's a whole rainbow of color noises, and they can help you calm your mind, reduce stress, and sleep better, like the green noise you're listening to now. With the Better Sleep app, you can discover more color noises and over 200 soothing sounds, guided meditations, and bedtime stories. High-quality rest is vital to your mental well-being and physical health. Calm your restless mind, conquer your day, and sleep better at night. Download Better Sleep from the App Store or Google Play and start a 7-day trial today. Because when you sleep better, you feel better.